Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today we're going to take a look at the work of Kari Voutilainen. And I thought, well, here it is. There's like pretty much one guy and a few other people making watches in this little beautiful mansion in Moutier in Switzerland, which is just up the road from Plurier. And so I started looking at it, and what I found was even more amazing than I could have imagined. And today, I can tell you without a doubt, I'm just going to touch on the tip of the iceberg. Voutilainen has done so many things. So I'm just going to try to give you a taste of it. And one of the ways I think I can do it, I'm going to spend a little time on one of the movements, the primary movement that Voutilainen uses and that he developed to use as a base for a lot of other watches that he did. But there were so many surprises that I'm only going to scratch the surface. Okay, well, there's the location in Switzerland. Voutilainen is from Finland. He went to watch school in Finland, and then he went to Switzerland, and I think it was Wustep. He was in the school there, and then he worked for Parmigiani. Worked with Michael Parmigiani for about 9 years, and then he started his own company in around the early 2000s in that neighborhood. Okay, so what I want to start with, the watch. This particular watch is called the V8R Power Reserve. And this is the base movement for a lot of the watches that came after this. And so I wanted to start with it. One of the things that it has among the many features, it has do escape wheels. And what they do is that they give an impulse directly to the balance wheel. As you know, the balance wheel goes this way and this way, back and forth. All right, so let's take a look at some of the other features of this particular movement that is a base, and that'll tell you a lot about the kind of watchmaker that Voutilainen is. Okay, the first thing, and I think we've talked about this before, one of the problems that mechanical watchmakers have is the whole issue of constant change or constant force. Okay, in a spring, when you have it all wound up, there's a very high charge, and so you got more power. And when it's almost unwound, you have the other end of the spectrum, and there's a low charge. Well, this is going to mess up the way your watch keeps time. And in between there's a space between those two vertical green lines where you have a stable change. In other words, the unwinding is at a stable rate. So what you want to do, and this is what Voutilainen had, he said he wanted to do it so that at the point where it would be stable, that's where you wanted to stop the winding. So you wind it up until you got to the point right before it got the sort of the high, powerful winding. And then you want your watch to stop with unwinding. Now, in order to do this, he used something called the Maltese cross. And the Maltese cross, it's got a lot of things in the history of it. There's also the Maltese falcon, just in case. The flag at the top is a Huguenot flag, and the Huguenot flag was in the center of it was a Maltese cross, and the fleur-de-lis were in between there. Below that is sort of a standard Maltese cross. It looks a lot like the Vacheron Constantin's logo. And then at the very bottom, there's another Maltese cross that's also called the five-pointed star. Now, this is the Maltese cross that Voutilainen was using in his in order to keep the wine between this stable area. And the way it was done, you have 5 arms, and 4 of the arms are concave. They went in like this, and one of them is convex. And what happens is that when the wheel goes around, the concave arms let it slip through, whereas the convex one acts as a brake. Let's take a look at the way in which this works. Now we're going to start off here with this is a sort of it looks more like a Maltese cross. And you have some kind of arbor spinning around, and it will have a little peg or something on it that will catch the Maltese cross and move it. This is the one that you have on your within the watch. Now, on the left, you have the arbor with the nose in it, and it'll goes around and kicks the Maltese cross around until it hits the brake, and it's at the brake point in this image here. And what you want to do is that you have, when you first wind it, the Maltese cross is just kicking around one step at a time until it hits the brake, and then it stops. And once it stops, okay, you're all set. It's wound as far as you want to wind it. Now, when it's unwound, the barrel turns, and each rotation represents about 8 hours in this particular diagram. By the way, I got the onlinelearn.com. I took a piece of it out of there. Now, it goes around and goes around until it hits the point where you end up with the convex arm, and that stops everything. And so at this point, it now needs to be rewound. This is all of the winding is all done here, and that's basically it. But it's something that takes a certain level of skill that watchmakers like Voutilainen have. Okay, now another feature that he has in his the kinds of things that he does, there's something that's called the Breguet overcoil, and the overcoil it goes over the top of the spring. It's used in both the mainspring and the hairspring, and what this can do is again help give it this standard stable release force. And this is one of the characteristics of Voutilainen, is that he will get the old ways. He'll go and he'll find, like for example, Breguet, and use these techniques in the history of mechanical watchmaking in order to create the most stable platform that he can. All right, let's go on. It's just a couple of examples. There are a lot of others that he uses as well. Now, one of the things that I discovered that was, and again, like I said, the entire process, just looking at the watches, and I only got through part of them because before I realized I'd be here all day. Okay, here is one of the watches that caught my eye. It's a Chronometer 27. It has a Longines caliber 360. And what Voutilainen did, he uses the Ibauche from the Longines 360. Now you might say, what would you do that for? Okay. And the reason for it was that back in the day, I think this is back in the 50s and 60s, they used to have, and I think it was in Neuchâtel, they had a contest every year to who could make the best chronometer. And so all of the different companies would compete. And I think 1967 was the last year that they had it. And in the final running was Longines. I think they came in fourth place. The other ones that did well were Amiga, and Zenith. They were the other ones. But the funny thing was, a couple that did really well, in fact, too well, I think, were Seiko. They had some things. The first time they entered, they didn't do too well, and they went back and they fixed it up, and they did very well. And after that, they stopped it. I think there was another thing. This was also when quartz was introduced, and quartz was, I mean, the accuracy of quartz was just blowing everybody away, so they figured, oh, heck with it. And that was it, the last one in 1967. Well, Voutilainen found the IBOSH for the Longines entry into these chronometers. It was a 360. And he put together this Chronometer 27, which is I mean, it was just this incredible watch. Now, normally I'm, using somebody else's movement. And in this case, no. Here you have this incredible movement that was available. He found it and said, "Well, heck, I'm gonna use it." Notice too the shape of that movement. The picture at the bottom center down there is the Longines one, and notice how it has almost a tonneau shape to it, rather than a round one like most of them. And then so what Voutilainen did, he made a rectangular shaped case for it. It's it's an amazing watch. Okay, this next one is the GMT6. Now there is something. This has a free sprung balance. This was another feature that he seemed to like more than the other ones. A free sprung balance is one where on your balance spring you have it's a set size to it. And then he has something that was called the Grossmann interior curve and the Phillips exterior curve. And they were moving pretty fast, 18,000 VPH. And this was the diameter of the balance wheel was 13.6 millimeters, okay, and the wheel was in rose gold. Now, the Grossmann, you may remember, we had a video on Moritz Grossmann, who is the German watchmaker who was revived by Christine Hutter, and the company with his name, the Moritz Grossmann. This was one of the historical things that he had done to come up with the what's called the Grossmann curve. All right, this next one is another very, very interesting one. It's called the observatory, and the reason it's called that is that the way in which they judged the chronometers back in the 50s and 60s and so forth was through an observatory. And they were using the observatory in Neuchâtel. The French had used the Besançon observatory in Besançon, France. All right. Well, what Voutilainen found, he found Pazou 260 IBOSH that they had never made a movement with it, but it was for this contest, and so Pazou had this fantastically accurate, well done IBOSH, and so this was discovered by Voutilainen. They said, "Well, heck, I'll create a watch with it." Now he had his own flair to it, to be sure, but to discover that, I've been looking for a Pazou 260. I've had my El Ra has a Pazou 7001 in it. Now, it's nowhere near as nice as the 260, but it was one of those movements that was later bought and owned by ETA. Both the 7001 and, of course, the 260, these were developed before they became part of ETA. I don't know if ETA had any claim on them, or just Voutilainen found some and thought, well, heck, here's a box of them, I'll buy them all. And they were in the form of iboshes. Iboshes are just all of the parts that they had made for it. This is another watch that is just, it also won one of the Grand Prix. I think it was 2007. It won the Grand Prix for the men's watch. Another watch that I really liked was this 28. And this was a new movement beyond the base movement that they had. And there's really not a lot about it that he wrote about it, other than pointing out that they only made 10 of them. This is, to me, the big problem with Voutilainen. He makes these wonderful watches, but he's a lot of, excuse me, a lot of them, he makes one of them is unique. Or he makes, in this case, he makes 10. And so it's and the watches, I think the base price is around $65,000. They're very expensive if you can find them. And the Voutilainen himself has almost what you might call a sort of an artist's dream job. And an artist's dream job is doing the kind of work that he enjoys doing. A big piece of what he does is to remain small. He felt that one of the problems that Parmigiani ran into is that they grew a little too fast. And so he didn't want that to happen. So he's got this chateau in Maltese, which is just up the road from Plurier, and where Beauvais and Parmigiani, I don't know if there's some other ones there as well. But let me encourage you, if you don't have, I know very few of us can afford a Voutilainen, but man, I tell you, if you can get your hands on one somehow, take it. They're hard to find. They're wonderful watches. And I encourage you to find out more about them. Just go to the Voutilainen site, and you can see there are tourbillons, you name it. There's everything that you could want in a watch. But they only made like 4 or 5 of them. So anyhow, I'd really like to get your feedback on this, hear what you think about it. And one of the things I've been looking for some of these movements that Voutilainen has been able to find and say, hey, this would be fun to do something with. Also, this is an invitation to subscribe if you like. And until Sunday, this is Bill Sanders with Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection.